How long do you have to file a medical negligence case from the time it happens?
Well, that's a complicated question, but
Can you give me a simple answer?
the simple answer is it depends, but that's probably what many lawyers would say. But in general, you have 2 years from the date that you knew or should have known that a malpractice occurred. And if the malpractice resulted in someone's death, then you have 2 years from the date of death. And those time frames can be extended for various different reasons.
How about the end of the time frame? Is there a maximum time frame for a general malpractice case?
For the statute of repose, it wouldn't go out any more than 4 years from when the incident was at issue or the occurrence. And one of the reasons for that too, at least from a practical standpoint, is, physicians, sometimes they move on. They leave the state, they leave the practice, they leave the hospital where they're practicing. The same with the nurses, the same with the people that are involved, that are providing care. Records get lost, misplaced, destroyed after, that long of time, 4 years later. You don't want to be in a position where it becomes extremely difficult to try to defend it, and it's not really fair when so much time has passed.
So it's 2 years or the most 4 years, but are there some exceptions to that general rule?
There's some exceptions.
Okay, and what are the general exceptions?
If the plaintiff is under some sort of disability, and by disability we mean mental disability, legal disability, or if the plaintiff is a minor, which means under the age of 18, then the statute of repose, which would be the end time in which they could bring the suit, is extended to 8 years. And there's also an issue of continuing treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And in Illinois law, if the person is still under the continuing treatment of that particular physician, it can't be the continuing treatment generally, it has to be continuing treatment which results or causes the negligence.
Okay, I'd like to move on just a little bit because we only have about 4 or 5 more minutes left to professional negligence against an attorney. Now, if you're the plaintiff and you feel that there's some action against an attorney, can you sue your attorney for negligence?
Yes, you can. There's actually a case. There's actually 2 cases when you want to sue your attorney, and I'll explain why just briefly. Let's say you hire an attorney to file a lawsuit for you. Let's say it involves a car crash. As we talked about, there's deadlines that the lawyer has to follow in order to preserve the right to file the lawsuit. And in a car crash, it's, again, typically 2 years. If the lawyer you hired didn't file a lawsuit within that 2-year period of time, and it was careless for him or her not to have done that, then you would have to, the only way to recover would be to actually sue your lawyer, obviously get another lawyer to do that, sue your lawyer, and during that process you actually have to still prove that that driver was negligent. And if you can prove that the driver was negligent, now that driver is not even going to be part of the case really as a defendant, or they may get named as a defendant, but they're not going to be responsible for it. If you prove that the driver was negligent, and you also have to prove that the lawyer was careless or negligent in not filing your lawsuit on time, then you could recover, and it would be a lawsuit against your lawyer, and the lawyer would end up having to pay whatever amount of money that you were able to prove that the driver caused you injury.
Do you need an expert in a case against a lawyer to
Yes.
prove that he was negligent?
Yes, same in a professional negligence case. When you're holding someone to a professional standard, you're going to need expert testimony to establish what that standard is.
Okay. How about the situation where it's involving a medical negligence case and the attorney does something, or you believe that the attorney didn't handle your case right, or as you said, Ron, he misses a statute, or I guess maybe even doesn't get the right defendants in there. How would you prove a medical negligence case? Because we said there's some standards for medical negligence. Do you have to have experts for all of that again?
You do. Same standard. If you hired a lawyer to pursue your medical negligence claim and the lawyer, let's say, forgot to hire an expert, I guess that's the most obvious careless thing you could do, because we mentioned you have to have an expert testify to show what the standard of care was. Let's say you hired a lawyer, he or she doesn't hire an expert, you go to trial, you're going to lose that case. That's an example of medical negligence, of legal professional negligence arising from medical negligence. Now, the same thing is true. You still have to prove that the doctor was negligent before you could recover against your lawyer for not having hired an expert.
So you could have a situation where you have a lawyer who you believe did something wrong with your case, maybe, and you could sue the lawyer, you say negligence, but if the underlying case, you can't prove the damages, or you can't prove that that case was a negligence case, then you can't win against the lawyer in that
Yeah,
particular case.
That's generally correct, and they're tough cases to establish because you really have to prove two cases.
Right. And similar, we have statute of limitations in those kind of cases also.
In medical negligence cases.
And in attorney, against attorney too.
Yes, you still have 2 years to file a lawsuit against your lawyer. Now that starts when you knew or should have known that your lawyer was careless. And a lot of times you might go through the entire case as a litigant, a plaintiff, or defendant in a case. You might not know that your lawyer was negligent, and until you go seek other counsel, or until your lawyer sort of fesses up and says, a mistake happened, then your clock starts ticking as to how much time you have to sue your lawyer.
Well, we're just about out of time. I'd like to thank my guests, the Honorable Susan Zwick, Ron Kalish, and Lisa Velez. This is Illinois Law, presented by the Illinois State Bar Association, and thank you for watching tonight's program. Thanks, everybody, for being here.